Welcome to So Many Sequels, your book club for movies. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
And welcome to Mythology Month here on the show. We're in week 2.
Yes.
Much more traditional this week in terms of mythology. We covered Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is a very loose adaptation. You should go check that out, somanysequels.com. It was extremely fun.
Yeah.
But we're talking about mythology-related movies all month long to get ready for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey here very soon, coming out July 16th, I believe.
Very soon.
Very soon. A week or two. But that's only if you're watching this in a timely fashion. So anyway, we're talking about mythology movies all month long. I can't remember. I don't think we really talked about this much in our first episode about it, but it feels important to me. Did you guys go through a mythology phase as a kid? Did you? Yeah. Immediately, David started nodding. I did too.
I didn't, and I think
hyperfixation of sorts.
No, yeah. I think I saw Hercules. I have seen and was a fan of at the time, but no longer am a fan of the Kevin Sorbo Hercules TV show.
Right.
But outside of that, I never really got into it much.
No, I got pretty profoundly into it. You know, Josh, I think you've talked about in the past your Egypt phase as well. And for me, there was a bit of an overlap there. Hercules, which we'll talk about Hercules, but Hercules in 97, I think, also played a part in that. There's definitely, to me, a direct correlation, I think, between like Greek mythology and modern day like comic book storytelling.
I agree.
So that element of it, and the fact that, like, I mean, if you go back, you look at all these stories, they are all interconnected, and there is people who show up in one myth that pop up, and here they are as a minor character in this person's story. So that stuff fascinated me as a kid, whether it was gods or the heroes, or just sometimes there are some just stories that have nothing to do with the hero. There's no heroic part to it. There's just kind of like an explanation of some natural phenomena. And so that stuff, super intrigued me as a kid. So I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I would call myself a very big fan of all of this stuff, whether it's Greek mythology or even some of the Greek history.
I think I'm too literal, and I think I was even more as a kid. I think I'm too literal, and I don't think I get it.
And you were like, they know what do you mean? They know gods.
I was just like, this is not, what are you talking, why? No. And then I also would be like, I didn't like Shakespeare because of the language. And so I think it just had several things that just went against
barriers.
It. And I would really, I would like to revisit it, because I do think you're right, David. I mean, these are like the foundational building blocks of storytelling.
Truly.
And so true. I think going back and trying to revisit, I would learn and see so much more of those things in like the art and pieces that we watch.
Yeah. This is where a lot of, archetypes of certain characters I mean, it's Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey are often credited as being sort of the birth of Western literature, though some might dispute that. So, but it is, I mean, it also, I was always very intrigued as a kid by I guess the way that ancient people tried to understand the world around them. And I probably wouldn't articulate it that way as a 9-year-old, but that was something that interested me, is like people trying to figure out how lightning works. Or figure out why the sun goes down and the moon, that goes down at the end of the day. That kind of stuff to me was always so interesting, because, I had the benefit of all this scientific discovery that had come along over time, and they were the ones trying to figure it out based on just their observation back then. So that stuff always intrigued me as well. But for the sake of today's episode, I've done a lot of research on the Iliad and the Odyssey, so like to provide some level of critical analysis. That's something I can bring to this particular episode.
Wow. Thank you for your research.
How about that? My research was watching the movie.
Yeah, and wasn't that an unfortunate bit of research?
Look, let's get into it. Let's start here with how Letterboxd describes the film here. This is Troy, came out in 2004. In year 1250 BC, during the late Bronze Age, two emerging nations begin to clash. Paris, the Trojan prince, convinces Helen, queen of Sparta, to leave her husband, I forgot how to say that, Menelaus, and sail with him back to Troy. After Menelaus finds out his wife was taken by the Trojans, he asks his brother Agamemnon to help him get her back. Agamemnon sees this as an opportunity for power. They set off with 1,000 ships, holding 50,000 Greeks to Troy. I don't know why it needed to have the math in there, but David, how did this movie do when it came out in 2004?
Moderate success for Troy. It was at the time considered one of the most expensive movies ever made, but brought in $46.8 million in its opening weekend, topping the previous weekend's #1 movie, Van Helsing, which brought in another $20 million. You had Mean Girls at number 3, Man on Fire at number 4, and the other debuting film that weekend was Breaking All the Rules, starring D.L. Hewley, which brought in $5 million.
Excellent.
So $46 million opening weekend. The movie would go on to make $133 million in the U.S., $364 million overseas, for a worldwide total of $497 million. Just missing out on making $500 million worldwide there. For the year 2004 in the United States, Troy finishes the number 11 movie of the year, just behind iRobot. #1 movie of the year, Shrek 2, followed by Spider-Man 2, The Passion of the Christ, Meet the Fockers, and The Incredibles. It was the number 8 movie worldwide that year. It is the it is the 6th film that we have done from 2004. Those other films include Ocean's 12, Spider-Man 2, Meet the Fockers, Christmas with the Cranks, and The Day After Tomorrow. So if you're interested in any of those reviews from 2004, go check them out from SoManySequels.com.
Hell yeah, do that. Go to Meet the Fockers.
You could talk me into like one of them, maybe.
So I want to address right off the bat of this movie that it was written by David Benioff, one of the guys who, many would argue, helped ruin Game of Thrones.
But he created Game of Thrones too, didn't he?
Well,
I mean, the series.
He created the series. If you want to get into the lore of it, which anyone can correct me if you've heard this before, but my very basic understanding is once Game of Thrones ended, it wasn't really what George R.R. Martin had written anymore, because they went beyond what had written. So they kind of took over the story from there, and then they kind of like shitted it up. So like they created it based on something he made, and then they ended it based off something they made. And that part sucked.
No doubt.
So Many Sequels at So Many Sequels Pod, comment and tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Oh boy, you're opening up.
Everybody hates OG Game of Thrones now. It's fine.
No, I mean, people still like, I think, the first 5-ish seasons.
Right. How many seasons were there? I don't know.
7, I think, maybe 8.
Anyway, David Benioff, not exactly a popular name in Hollywood these days, is what I'm getting at.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So he drafted the screenplay for this. Sorry for all the shots fired at him, I guess. Whatever. But he wrote this screenplay, yes, based on Homer's The Iliad. Is very sort of. We've got a huge cast here of like a who's who of A-listers, I feel like, from 2004.
Bitch, when Brian Cox showed up, I lost it because I didn't look at the cast and I've never seen this movie before.
It's when
Brian Cox showed up as King Agamemnon, I went, no. And he had the hair. No.
And it feels like he hasn't aged a day, really, does it?
No. Yeah, he's still the same.
It felt like
age.
seeing the future in 2004.
No, I think this is a great movie to not look at the cast at before you go into it, because you will be constantly going, oh, hey, it's that guy.
You'll be constantly reminded. I totally agree. But we've got Brad Pitt leading this cast in like the Brad Pittiest time to be Brad Pitt, I feel like.
Oh my God. 2004 Brad Pitt. They tried to sex him up good.
And they did all right. I mean, I think there's some reaction that we'll get to later when I read the Letterboxd reviews
I bet.
to that. But I don't know. I don't know that he looks like a Greek god in my opinion, but he's certainly like something.
He's toned, he's sculpted, he's got that lower V that people be going for, you know.
We're talking about Brad Pitt?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I think it depends on what you consider. I think he's got more of a Greek guy. I think that, they have them all muscular and stuff, but I don't know how true that is. I think they were just in shape.
Yeah. I mean, athletic. You're looking for an athlete, is what you're
Yeah,
thinking of. You're
yeah,
thinking of that sort of Greek sculpture uh, uh, motif.
yeah.
Exactly. So I guess for since David told us he did so much research, I feel like I just want to ask first, like, what are some what are some of the major differences?
Oh boy.
So that's a good
Like,
question.
and like, within reason, knowing that there's probably going to be quite a bit, but
There are quite
what are
there
the
are quite a bit.
majors?
So the major differences are well, first off, so the Iliad takes
They
place over
didn't
the course
speak
of 10
English.
years. Yes, I mean that's a major. The Iliad takes place over the course of 10 years. This movie makes it like maybe 3 weeks. Now granted, when you read the Iliad, you're only like it only shows you like maybe 50 days of that 10-year war, but it's a long war. It's not like when we go see the like when we do the Odyssey, like Odysseus gets stranded from home for an additional 7 years on top of the 10 years that it took for them to take Troy. Like it, so this is a long, prolonged, foreign war, and so that's one of the first major differences is that things. The other major difference is pretty much the fate of everyone involved. Almost every character in this, almost every major character in this that dies in this movie survives. This particular war. So like they
Yeah,
they took a lot of liberties with the fate of everyone. The
Interesting.
Iliad, probably the most specific change worth noting is that one, the Iliad and the Odyssey are very much companion pieces, and the Iliad ends after Hector's death. Like when Hector dies and they have his funeral, that's the end of the Iliad. And then the rest of the story is picked up sort of midway through the Odyssey, where they tell kind of the fall of Troy and how they did all that stuff. So there's this particular movie sort of synthesizes a lot of both the Iliad and the Odyssey, as well as some other historical myths and things like that. Specifically, there's a scene towards the very end of this movie when when Troy is being sacked, and you see Paris played by Orlando Bloom. He gives the sword of
Ha!
Troy. He gives the sword of Troy to this kid named Aeneas, right? You may remember this part. He goes, "Take this, and you will, uh, lead our people to the future," right? Well, that's a myth as well. Aeneas is given the sword of Troy. He goes on to essentially found Rome, and that's part of the myth of how Rome is founded. That's not necessarily something that's, I think, contained. I'd have to look again. I don't think that's contained within the story of Iliad, but it's another story that exists about what happened there. So it's kind of synthesizing a lot of different things and putting them all together in one big movie. And apparently, a lot of people told um, the writer,
Benioff.
yes, that maybe you're adding a little too much of the whole thing into this movie. But
And he
he was
didn't
like,
listen.
I got to do. Although I
They got to do
appreciate,
it.
there is a quote from him somewhere where he said that he was like, I just wanted to avoid having a moment where I had to put 9 years later on the screen because there's a big gap between one thing to the next.
Well, what I didn't, I didn't do as much in-depth research as David, but one of the things that I did see was that Achilles died before the Trojan horse was deployed. And so, it doesn't feel like he knew what he wanted to do with this particular movie. It's
Ah,
called Troy, but the
right.
focus is on Achilles.
They
Like,
should have named it
Right.
Achilles.
right. If they
Right.
wanted to do, if they wanted to tell the rise and the fall of Troy, then they should have done it more historically accurate.
Yes.
I think that's the
And
issue that people are, the story accuracy to the material. But
and
it focuses so much on Achilles
right.
to where it doesn't even tell the true story of Achilles or Troy. So you
Yeah.
don't get anything. You should have just written something original, bro.
That's another major aspect that differs is that the Iliad very much has Hector sort of as the focal point. This is my son, Jack, for anybody who might be watching right now. So anyway, the movie kind of puts more of the focus on Achilles, and I think it doesn't feel balanced in that way, like you're saying. Like if they wanted to tell a story about these two guys, about Achilles and Hector, and one guy who kind of fights for his own glory and one guy who fights for his people, they could make you could tell an interesting dynamic of those two things.
It doesn't give me anybody to root for
Ah,
because Troy is just sitting there being Troy. You got Agamemnon and the Greeks invading Troy. So Achilles is not a good guy. I am not rooting for Achilles to take down Troy, but that's where the focus of the movie is. It's not on the overall dynamic of it. It doesn't give me anybody to root for. So, like, when Achilles is doing good, I am like, boo, I don't like you. You seem to be a jerk.
Right.
And
Achilles
you're
is a jerk, yeah.
and the Trojans seem like perfectly fine people who were just kind of sitting there not really doing anything based on the story they're telling. And
Yeah.
so none of it made. And
Well,
yeah,
I think that this movie goes I don't know if this was intentional, but I think this movie does go a long way to pr- be like, there's no good guys here. Because
yeah,
even the Greeks are like,
Which is
Agamemnon's
real
like,
a
I'm
lot of
not
times.
here. Like, I'm
Yeah.
here just to conquer this place. Menelaus, who has come to get his wife back, doesn't actually want her back in a romantic sense. He plainly
it's
says,
just
"I
a
want her back so
pride
I can
thing.
kill
Well,
her."
she
Just
cheats
full
on
on
him with
pride.
what's
For
his
pride.
name?
It's all for pride.
Orlando Bloom,
That's his name.
Orlando Bloom, exactly.
Legolas.
Legolas.
Paris, yes.
Oh yeah, that's sure.
And this would have been right
Typecast
after.
Archer.
It's funny you mentioned Legolas. I do feel like the scale and the scope of this movie, which I think that's the best aspect of it, is that it's very epic, a lot of practical effects and sets and things like that. It does feel like it is in some ways a response to the Lord of the Rings and the success
Mhm.
thereof, and how epic and big that was.
That is very interesting because I didn't even think of it that way. Like you had
Yeah.
Lord of the Ring, the Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001.
Yep.
Two Towers came out in 2002.
Mhm.
Return of the King came out in 2003.
Yeah.
I swear to God. Troy came out in 2004. That's 4 straight years of Orlando Bloom in epic
And then Pirates of
sword
the
As an,
Caribbean
battles
in that.
as an archer.
as an
And
archer.
you got Pirates
4
of the Caribbean
straight
in the
years.
mix of that as well.
Oh, that's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Pirates is coming
So-
out at the same time with
Well,
a different aspect.
And you've got Shondine in there, so
Yeah.
you've got a little Lord of the Rings carryover in
Yeah. Shondine
Troy
as
as well. I want to talk about the director Wolfgang because
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I said this off mic, but this feels like a movie that was made in the 50s, and some of that is an insult, and some of that is a compliment, in that it was practical, man. Like it was more practical than not. The sets seemed real. Everything seemed real in set building, and I appreciated that when they're trying to build this epic big scene, right? It's not just CGI reliant, and I liked that. But what I didn't like is the pacing. It felt like the pacing of a movie from the 1950s that was supposed to be a 1950s epic, and it just doesn't work in 2004. So if you're going to compare it, like we said, to Lord of the Rings, that was so much action and so much pace, and there was so much going on. And there were so many moments in this movie where it was like a 45-second pan of just the big stuff. And I was like, I didn't need that. And they did that so many times. And it just slowed everything down because the stuff, it felt like they extended. It wasn't the battles. It was the build up to. It was just the people. It was like if you spent 45 minutes spending time walking with the trees in the Lord of the Rings. I don't want that.
Right.
I want the other stuff. They focused on the wrong part.
No, and it's such a complicated, because I agree with you, and I think that part of the struggle is that I don't mind that. I don't mind trying to make the movie feel big. I think we're going to get that with the Odyssey, but I feel like the movement just it just feels slow. It just feels like
Mm-hmm. It
there's
feels like the movie took 10 years, even though it was 2 weeks.
there's creating grandeur, but if you don't have like a certain sense of forward momentum with that, like it's just not it just doesn't work as well. And I feel like the characters they're in, like you said, we're not finding ourselves rooting for Achilles necessarily. We're not
Yeah.
finding ourselves my wife asked me, she's trying to watch, and she's like, whose side am I supposed to be on here? And I was like, it's kind of up to you. You
Whoever
got
you
whoever
want.
side
Yeah.
you want.
Liked Hector. I thought Hector was a good character. I thought that I do think that their dynamic was fun. The difference between Achilles and Hector. And I do think that was a good story because my favorite part of this movie came in the final third, specifically the fight with Achilles and Hector. I thought
Yeah,
that was
the
really well.
one-on-one.
I really
Yeah.
thought that was well choreographed. I thought it was well executed. You could feel the tension between these two after everything they've been through. And I felt like that was a really good moment until about, the end. Like from that moment on, I was like, okay, I can get, this is the pace that if you wanted to give me 2 hours and 45 minutes, I needed more of this.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it until the end.
Yeah, I think you could have almost, you could have really cut through a lot of the first hour and just gotten to like when they storm the beach, when they take their first, attempt at the battle. Paris squares off against Menelaus, and and how that interaction goes down. I think you could have really streamlined the build to the fight. And then you could, so I mean, that's just kind of how I feel there. You talked about Wolfgang Peterson. He's, I mean, he's a widely respected director, but
For sure.
even Peter O'Toole and Brad Pitt have said that, they didn't love this.
Yeah.
Peter O'Toole said he walked out 15 minutes in,
He
which I
did.
I
I
tracked
read
where
that too.
I
Called him a
tracked
clown.
I tracked where that was, and that's right after that's when you may not remember this, but right after Paris and Helen decide to run away together, they're like on the boat sailing back, and he's like, "Brother, would you do anything to protect me?" He's like,
Yeah.
at that point, Peter O'Toole's like, "I'm done with this."
Bye.
And
Yeah.
then Brad Pitt kind of said that he was forced to do this more or less. He said that
Studio favor, basically.
he said basically studio favor. He had pulled out of another movie, and so they made him do this. And let's see, what's his wording here? So he said, I had to do Troy. I was pulled out of another movie, and then they had to do something for the studio. So I was put in Troy. It wasn't painful, but I realized that the way the
Looked
movie was
painful.
being told was not how I wanted it to be. I made my
Homer
own
would
mistakes.
agree.
Yes, he says I made my own mistakes in it. What am I trying to say about Troy? I couldn't. He goes, I could not get out of the middle of the frame. It was driving me crazy. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but he says, I couldn't get out of the middle of the frame. I'd become spoiled to working with David Fincher. It's no slight to Wolfgang. Das Boot is one of the all-time great films. But somewhere in it, Troy became a commercial kind of thing. Every shot was like, here's the hero. There's no mystery.
I can see exactly what he's saying there, and I want to tag that back to what Garrett was saying earlier about how this feels like a movie from the 50s. Because I does almost feel like the last of a certain type of movie that
Yeah.
would have been big a few decades earlier, and that's part of it. I think what he's saying there is like David Fincher in the 90s. He had just done what with him? Was it
Fight Club.
Seven? No, Fight Club.
Probably.
And that was sort of the time, experimental, weird, kind of groundbreaking. And this feels like it's complimentary and not, depending how you want to look at it, but like the perfect, like, this is exactly what I want an old epic to be, but it's
Right.
2004.
Yeah.
And people aren't as into it, that style anymore. I think
No.
that makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead.
And it doesn't even feel like the Lord of the Rings movies that are coming out at the same time and have a similar,
Yeah.
obviously it's not the same, but a similar vibe.
You know what the miss was
People
on
are
this?
loving that.
Now, like comparing it to Lord of the Rings, I think is going to be, it's not anything. I've never seen this movie before, so it's the first time, but the
I feel like it's tough to escape it.
The pieces that they left out, the elements of the gods of Greece,
Exactly.
those pieces that they just totally cut, they made this it took away some of the epicness of it,
Right.
because it was just Roman Greece soldiers, which again is not the point of this story. So if they wanted it to be a modern day epic of the tale of Troy, they should have started with all of these different characters. So you can have Achilles in there, and maybe he's the focus of the first movie, and then you have all of the gods in there. You bring in all of those pieces, and that I think would have been worthy of that epic. But they stripped all that out.
Yeah.
Gave you 245 of just boring dudes fighting.
No, I should say that is we were talking about differences earlier, and I should have mentioned the gods are not, an idea like they are in Troy. They are very much characters in the Iliad and the Odyssey. They are
That's also
real.
true. Yeah.
And I that's something that I'm worried about with Nolan's Odyssey. It's kind of
Yeah.
going to that same path. This is very much trying to take a story. Like I'm trying to think of a good example. This would be like trying to take uh something like Star Wars, right? Very sci-fi, very fantastical, and saying, what if we told a really historically accurate version of it where none of the cool stuff happens and it's just dudes fighting with normal swords or something like that. Like that's what they took all of the fantasy
Hmm.
aspects out of this. And basically all the characters are like, yeah, we believe in the gods, but they're also like, we don't actually believe in the gods. It's just something we say to make people
Right.
do stuff. And I mean, Achilles is like full on, atheist essentially in this movie.
Right.
Like
Well, and again, you even
and
look at Hercules, which we're going to do next week.
yeah.
Hashtag plug. And that the myth of Achilles,
Mhm,
and the reason
mhm.
that he got shot in the heel is that his mom dipped him in the river to
Right.
be invincible and all of that stuff. And you just don't. They hint at it, right? But
Yeah.
that's the stuff that you should have leaned into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the stuff that made my Greek phase happen, my
Hmm.
Mhm.
mythology phase as a kid. I was so into those fantastical stories and how they tied into um, almost everyday things, and that's
Yeah.
totally missing
Eh,
from this.
I wanna add one more thing, and then I think we can probably get close to wrapping this up. But I do think, and I stand by. So I was a really big fan of this at 14 and 15. I thought that this was like really
Sure.
cool.
Makes
It
Absolutely.
was
sense.
there was there were battle scenes and the characters seemingly said cool stuff. I have much less of an eye for performance at that age.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think you're seeing a lot of that now. Like as the Odyssey gets closer to come out, there's a lot of people hating on it for various things, and they're holding up Troy as this like beacon of historical accuracy or something like that.
Hope not.
But like, I don't think that
crazy
I
because
don't think
it's
there's a lot of
not.
great performances in this. I actually think that for me, uh, the one of the only I think the best part of this movie is ironically Odysseus. Like I think Sean Bean as Odysseus is the best written character in this thing because as a character, even in the Odyssey, what makes him different than other Greek heroes is that he uses his wits and his planning and his sense of strategy. That's what makes the gods dislike him is that he's too smart for a human, essentially. He doesn't rely on his weaponry or his firepower or anything of that kind of his strength. Like every other Greek hero, it's like how strong they are, how fast they are. Uh, you know, he's his character's all about cunning, and so you see that a little bit in this movie. He's playing politics. He's making good arguments. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't do that. Achilles, this is why you should do this. And then he comes up with the idea for how to sneak past the wall. So like I remember as a kid, really hoping as a kid, I was 15 or whatever, kind of hoping that if anything would happen with Troy is that we get a new Odyssey movie because I really liked the Armand Desanti Odyssey movie of like 1990 something. I really wanted a new Odyssey, but with Sean Bean because Sean Bean's a fantastic actor and he could have
Well,
totally
you're
done it.
gonna get it with Matt Damon.
I'll take Matt Damon, I guess. Matt Damon should be
All
fun.
right. Well, yeah, let's get into our final review and rating of Troy. Any
I feel like went into this thinking, this was fine. 2.5. Whatever. And then I talked myself down to a 2.
Okay, wow, yeah. Yeah, I think at one point I wonder if I previously rated this on Letterboxd, but I think there was a time in my life that this was like a 4-star movie, that it was like a big scale movie, but that's probably why I bought it on DVD. But I think I've also whittled myself down to like maybe a 3 stars at best. Like, I'll give it the scale and I'll give it the practical effects. And I think that they do a really great job with that. I think some of the fight choreography is really good. I think that it's weak from a performance standpoint, and it's way too long. It's a lot shorter on TV. I can tell you that. So I think 3 stars is about as high as I can go with this.
I'm over here laughing to myself because I started out at about a 3 and have talked myself down to a 2.5. And it's one of those rare occasions where we have all talked about it and decided we liked the movie less. And that I think those are important. I feel like it's growth.
Yes,
I mean,
we have to. You got to look at it.
Some people say that we're too nice to these movies.
Yeah,
and sometimes it proves that we can be talked down.
I think if this is a movie so my first consumption of this movie was on television. I'm pretty sure. Like I didn't see it in the theater or anything like that. Sorry, that's my son. But
He's home.
anyway, if you like this movie, please leave a comment telling us what it is you love about the movie so much because we're open to it.
Brad Pitt's abs.
Yeah, and his side ass.
I ain't no tasteful side butt.
A little deep V action there.
So weird. Yeah, I really don't even have anything else to add about it. 2.5 stars for me.
Sweet. I mean, that's a good range for us.
Not
2 to
very
3.
good. I don't know.
It's a good range. It's not a good series. Let's see what this thing's rated on Letterboxd.
Yes, I've got some of the most popular reviews here ready to go. Starting off high with a 3.5-star review. No disrespect to Shania Twain, but how can you not be impressed by Brad Pitt? 2.5 stars from Ashley. I can excuse historical inaccuracies, but I draw the line at Achilles being straight.
Yes,
which was not discussed in the show, but
we can discuss it now if you want.
Extremely popular sentiment on Letterboxd.
Yeah, Patroclus not a cousin. That's what
at best you could say Achilles was bi, but he was definitely not straight.
Yeah.
2.5 stars from Lillian. Very much enjoyed Orlando Bloom's performance as Little Bitch Boy. Wonderful performance from Orlando there. The former Mr.
Man,
Katy
he
Perry.
was a bitch.
Your boy's got range.
He does have range, I guess.
Listen, I'm not here to. He causes war and then he ran away like a bitch.
Yeah, I mean,
finally,
he's a coward.
Finally, 0.5-star review from Ellie. Feels like getting punched in the face with heterosexuality for over 2 hours.
That's so funny. That's so funny because I remember being on message boards in 2005, and the main complaint about this movie was it was too homoerotic. Like it's so funny to me that conservative,
how much
viewers
it's
today,
changed over years.
They love this movie because it's really masculine. But at the time, I remember conservatives complaining that this movie was too homoerotic, that all these men in leather and naked Brad Pitt.
Totally
and stuff,
believe it.
It's so hilarious how that stuff just changes over time.
Now it looks manly. You need to be a real man like Brad Pitt.
Be a real man, bang dudes.
Like when he's shiny and with his long blonde hair. Anyway, that was a range there from a 0.5 star up to 3.5 stars. So, what do you guys think?
Golly, I don't know.
David, who's up? I think it's me. I'm still last, right?
I think you're still in last.
Okay.
So let me double check the scores. All on one screen this week. So, so Garrett, you are in last.
Okay.
6 to 7 to 10.
6, 7.
I don't believe this is going to be in 3s. I think we're going to be playing in the 2s. I'm going to be generous and say it's going to land on a 2.6.
2.6. I'm going to say the highest I think this movie could be is 3.2.
2.6 and 3.2. That's a huge gap for us, I feel like.
You got to gorge.
I know. 2.6 and 3.2. Golly. I guess let me take a 3.0 and hope that I can snag a win on the opposite ends of you guys.
That's fair.
3.0 for me. Okay. Troy, 2004 is...
Uh-oh. 4 stars.
No direct hit this week. The winner will be David this week because this movie is at a 3.5 on Letterboxd.
Man.
Which is surprisingly high considering our ratings and guesses.
I'm just going to say we just continue to provide fuel to everybody who calls us the little bitch boys of the movie review on YouTube's.
Now, I've never heard that claim.
You know what I mean? We're soft. We're a bunch of weak boys. Remember the guy that got mad at me for saying that the Fockers were bullying?
We look like a bunch of preachers or something. I don't remember.
Yes.
And now they're 2/3 right, basically.
Youth pastors.
You ever think about that?
Yeah.
Things have changed. Oh my God. Okay.
Uh,
Yep. Lost my train of thought there. So what does that mean? Does that put you where now?
well, I'm still one behind. I'm still two behind you. Josh is
Oh,
way in the lead at 10. Then it's me at 8, and then Garrett at 6. So Garrett's still within jumping distance. All he needs is a direct
Plenty of
hit one
time.
of these weeks.
Plenty of
sweet.
time.
All right. Well, stay tuned to see if that happens. Go to so many sequels.com, subscribe to the show wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, video on YouTube. Go check all that out. Follow us on Instagram at So Many Sequels Pod. Let us know what you think about Troy or what your favorite mythology movies are. We're gonna watch Hercules next, so let us know what you think about that. We will be excited to hear. But we'll see you guys next time.